Welcome to another episode of Seen and Heard broadcast. And today's broadcast is sponsored by, let me pull this up here, Oye Coffee in Nashville. Hi, Miss Henry.
Hi, Ms. Patterson. How are you today?
I'm fine. You froze during my introduction, so I'm going to introduce you again. This is Miss Kenniss Henry. She is the part of the National Coalition for Reparations for Black America. She's my mentor. I love you, Miss Henry. Thank you for joining the broadcast, this episode of Seen and Heard broadcast podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me in the space.
And this is a much needed conversation. Reparations for the Black community and who our leaders and the process of reparations. So I'm going to pass the torch to you, and you go ahead and start with the conversation.
Sure. Is there anything in particular you want me to present to your audience?
Yes, talk to us about what you've been working on, how you've been working on it, and the steps that you're taking for the process of reparations for Black Americans.
Sure. Um, as the Legislative Commission co-chair for the National Association of Blacks for Reparations in America in COBRA for the past 6 years, I have been working on the mission statement to get HR 40 passed through the congressional process and on to the West Wing to be signed into law. What does HR 40 ask for? It simply asks that we are able to stand up a commission. The commission would study the historical wrongdoings, the pernicious history of this country for the past 400 plus years, as well as the current day vestiges of crimes against Black people, people of African descent. In addition to studying that history, the commission would be charged with coming up with remedies of redress to wipe out all of the harm that we as people of African descent have endured for the past 400 plus years. When I first came to NCOBRA, the highest number of co-sponsors, and what do I mean by co-sponsors? In Congress, when a bill is introduced, you have to go through the process of getting congressional support. So on the House side, that's 435 House members, depending upon how many are Republicans, how many are Democrats. On the Senate side, it's 100 senators and Each state gets 2 senators, so that's 100 senators from 50 states, two senators per state. So every 2 years, if we cannot successfully move this legislation through Congress, the clock resets. And that is one of the most devastating things for a grassroots outreach person, for the person who is in the trenches getting the support. 6 years ago, when I came, the highest number of co-sponsors had been 48. HR 40 was introduced in around about 1989. The Honorable late Congressman John Conyers from Detroit, Michigan, introduced it into the House. Excuse me. And it's to honor the 40 acres and a mule. So every 2 years from the first introduction in 1989, it has been reintroduced every time for the duration up through today. We closed out the 116th session in December of 2020 with 173 co-sponsors on the House side and about 11 on the Senate side. To date, in the 117th session, we have 215 supporters on the House side and 22 on the Senate side. Each time we increase the number of co-sponsor supporters on the House side, we've heard from House administration, you don't have enough support. Go back and get more supporters. And now at 215 supporters, there are 9 holdouts of Democrats, and we're never going to get them because they're just staunch conservative outliers who are never going to vote for anything that has to do with any kind of public policies that would benefit people of color in general. But 215 supporters is a majority. We have been working, and when I say we, I'm talking about not just in COBRA, but the entire of the HR 40 coalition. There are many groups in that coalition, to include ACLU, to include faith-based communities, to include Human Rights Watch, just an array of NGOs and organizations who believe that the time has long since passed for there to be this commission. And if we want to be honest about it, this country stands up commissions all the time. They stand up a commission to study life on Mars. They
And
stand up
aliens.
Sorry?
And aliens.
Yes, they stand up a commission to study the life of aliens and decide whether or not there are even any aliens anywhere around. So all we're asking for is a commission. And all those people who continue to throw up, boulders to say, well, no, we don't want that because you're trying to take our life savings, or why now, that was then and this is now. So just get over it and go on with your lives. No, that cannot happen. One of the main reasons here is we all see how polarized this country is. And there has to be a point in this country's existence when we begin to come face to face with the need for radical racial reckoning. Mm-hmm. That means we have to actually sit down and deal with just how divided this country is. And it's divided down racial lines. It's divided down the color line, if you want to be even more basic about it. What are some of the things that we have done? We have sent numerous formal letters to House administration, that is Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn, and Steny Hoyer, begging them to do their job and to take H.R. 40 through the congressional process. They have ignored us. Steny Hoyer has said, well, he's going to wait to see what President Biden's position on this is. um, Jim Clyburn, the whip, whose job is actually to go and to take every single name of the 215 that we say are supporters of H.R. 40. His job is to go and to talk to each one of them and to shore up their vote, meaning when he's done with them, they say, yes, I signed on as a co-sponsor, and when it comes for a vote, I'm voting in favor of it. Can't get him to do that. And then, of course, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, even though we have not had a recent statement from her, a few years ago, she was on Howard University's campus, prominent HBCU, where she said to the students, yes, she supports HR 40, and yes, she supports reparations. We've done the Why We Can't Wait letter, which when we sent it, it had about 375 signatories on the letter. And these are organizations, these are faith-based groups, these are individuals who are, celebrities in some cases. And they're saying to House leadership, we must move forward with standing up this commission with the passage of H.R. 40. There are many, many, many studies out there that support that it is long overdue for us to move forward with this commission. The commission does not have the power to allocate direct payments. So there is no direct payment for all those people who are saying, well, you don't deserve any money, get a job and earn your way that way. Well, there is a wealth gap that constitutes intergenerational poverty for people of African descent. That wealth gap, if it were equated into years, would be about 228 years between the wealth of Euro Americans, or if you want to call them colonizers, oppressors,
Envelopes.
whatever. Sorry?
Envelopians.
So that too. And people of African descent. What does that mean, 228 years? It means that in order for people of African descent to even get to where they are today, that they would have to agree to stand down and amass no wealth at all for 228 years. Now, we know they're not going to do that. They
Right.
just aren't. So there has to be other solutions put in place so that we can go about closing that wealth gap. None of us are idiots. We cannot close that wealth gap with a minimum wage an hour job, $7.25. And the minimum wage has not moved in 13 and a half years.
But the
So,
cost of living keeps going up.
and the cost of living keeps going up, and not just the cost of living, but we're also talking now about a near 15% inflation rate on top of all else. We're talking about the price of gas. And what's amazing about the price of gas is just before every holiday, when people are going to be on the road, somehow or other, miraculously, the price of gas drops about 30-40 cents. Day after people all come back from their vacations and they're on the road trips, miraculously it leaps up 20 cents, and then 10 more cents, and then 10 more cents, and then 10 more cents. And then you pass what it was when it dropped just before you started to get on the road. So, we see the manipulation of just even in the gas price. And just being, in the house by myself, I can go to the supermarket and they say I spent $50 and
Mm-hmm.
they give me a bag and I don't eat meat, not beef, not pork, none of that. What in the world did I spend $50 on? So just imagine if you had a family, even if it's just a family of four, there's no way on a minimum wage an hour job of $7.25 you can take care of that family. There has to be a solution to this intergenerational poverty. I refuse to refer to it as the wealth gap. To me, the wealth gap is something that is maybe 4 inches apart.
Mm-hmm.
This is 228 years apart. So just think of it like this, if you will. During the period of enslavement, our ancestors worked approximately 256 years of force free labor. So if you take that 256 years of force free labor and you say, wow, the poverty, the intergenerational poverty gap is 228 years, it almost sounds as if in all this time we've only made about 28 years of progress towards catching up with those folk who came to this country for one reason. And that one reason, they can tell you it was about religious freedom. They can tell you it was about getting away from the tyranny of the queen and the king and everybody else. It was not. They
They were
came here
criminals.
because I don't even care if they were criminals. They came here because they wanted to seek the financial rewards that they believed were in the new world. They came here to increase their financial bottom line. It's all about capitalism. No
Mm-hmm.
matter how you look at it, it's still just about capitalism. So, 228 years, our ancestors were forced to toil from sun up to sunset. 228 years. So just think about now, and this is so offensive. I gotta throw this in there. This is totally
Mm-hmm.
offensive. Suddenly, it has nothing to do with slavery. It has nothing to do with enslavement. They were actually looking for ways to talk about this so that it does not, um, air quotes, offend them and is not harsh on their ears. So the most recent phraseology that I saw was involuntary relocation. I
Which
don't
is
even know whether
kidnapping. That is
I don't know whether
kidnapping.
I don't know whether to laugh or just to be extremely angry. Involuntary relocation, when we know 70% of our ancestors who were brought here were kidnapped. They went down in those villages and they went down in those hamlets and they went down in the savannas and wherever else and they kidnapped people and they brought them here. Maybe 20% of everyone who came here they decided to pay for it in some way or other, probably with a bunch of little trinkets
Mm-hmm.
and alcohol and maybe some cigars, whatever you want to call them,
Just like they did to the Native Americans.
just like they did to the Native Americans. And then where I happened to spend almost 5 days camping out on White House South Lawn a few days ago, trying to get Biden to help us out here. He said he had our backs. He said because we had his back, he would never turn his back on us. He had our backs, and he had this black agenda. And don't get me wrong, to place the first black female on the Supreme Court is phenomenal, but it does not negate the fact that the state of Black America is such that Biden must do more. That does not negate that fact. And no disrespect to our sister,
Right.
we still have six conservative folks sitting on the bench, and she is going to be one of three liberals. So the even though Biden did do that, Look at what just happened with Roe v. Wade, and it's that's not going to be the end of it.
Hmm.
That's just the beginning. They're coming after us. So, President Biden, on the South Lawn, President Biden, we really, really need you to give us an executive order. Why an executive order? Because even if House leadership decides that they are going to do what we ask and take HR 40 through the process, and we get it voted out of the House favorably, we still have to get over to the Senate side. It's a 50-50 split.
Hmm.
I'm sure this is going to be one of those pieces of legislation that they're going to decide needs a two-thirds majority. Well, we don't have two-thirds
No,
majority.
I mean,
Sadly,
Mansion and Cinema are. I mean,
well, it's
we
not
could.
just Mansion and Cinema. There are 50 Democrats in the Senate. We only have 23 of 50 Democrats as co-sponsors for the companion bill S40. There's 27 senators who have Democratic senators, let me say this, who have not come on board as co-sponsors for the companion bill, one of whom would probably be a major surprise. So even if we got it through the House side, there's no way we can get it through the Senate side. It just is not going to move through the Senate side. Regardless as to the two renegade senators or not, it's not moving through the Senate side. So we made the decision, because we're in the second year of the legislative session, if we hit December 31st and nothing has happened, then we have to reset that clock and start all over trying to get co-sponsors for HR 40 and the companion bill S40. That is tenuous, that is laborious, that is hard work.
And they're doing that
And
on purpose.
oh,
To try to wear us down.
well, they've been wearing us down for over 30 years.
Right.
So the issue then becomes, at the end of this session, we will have lost 27 Dems in the House who have been, for the most part, co sponsors. Maybe of the 27, there are three who are not co sponsors. So the majority of that 27 are co sponsors.
Hmm.
And now that means we don't know who's coming in to replace those 27. It could be that all 27 of them are Republicans.
Right.
So if all 27 of them are Republicans, then clearly that means that there may not be a House majority of Democrats. If
Hmm.
there's no House majority of Democrats, we are we're in
Yeah.
quicksand.
Yeah.
We're in quicksand because we would not have a majority of the House so that we could move forward and try again to get House leadership to do the right thing. Same thing on the Senate side. All of this is it's fluid. It's up in the air. You don't know where it's going to go and what the outcome will be. So this is the year we have to do this. There's no other way that we can get around this. So again, we sent the president, the HR 40 coalition, we sent the president a letter, a formal letter for an executive order by Juneteenth.
Hmm.
Needless to say, we were in July
Right.
and he did not give us what we asked for. And as I understand from the White House, his message was legislative. Take it through the legislative process, and then you can get it to my desk, and I will look at it, because I did say I do favor a reparations study. Well, he sat in the Senate for 99 trillion billion years, and he knows that even if we got it through the House side, there's no way we can get it through the Senate side. So why, Mr. President, would you actually tell us to legislate it? There's no way we can favorably legislate it through the entire of the congressional process.
Mhm.
So the thought that come January 1st, we will have to start all over and do what we've done every year to try and get support for HR 40. It's I can't even put it into words. It's so painful.
I can feel it. And I was going to ask you also, um, with the Suru for Solidarity, like the group that I met you in, are they still going, helping with the process of reparations
We
for
are
Japanese
we
Americans?
we recognize that there's no way we can do this by ourselves on our own.
Hmm.
A lot of it has to do with there are so many people, who, even people of African descent, who are one, embarrassed about their past and they don't want to talk about it. It's in the past, stay in the past. Then there are others who are saying, we don't need reparations. We just need to get a good job and go on with our lives. Then there are others who are saying, I don't believe in reparations. So factoring out those groups, there's no way we can do this by ourselves. So we have been blessed in the past couple of years. Our Japanese American families have come on board. They support us. They are with us, and that's just so wonderful. It's an excellent sign of solidarity. It definitely is a sign that unity can eventually bring on victory. We also have been fortunate enough to have faith-based organizations who normally don't mix religion and politics because this is kind of seen as political. But we have many, many faith-based organizations who have come on board, and they also are our partners, our collaborators, and we meet with them and we strategize on what our next step should be. So to answer your question, yes, the Japanese Americans are indeed, they stand shoulder to shoulder with us and we move in step together.
Now, what would you recommend to someone that's listening to this podcast? What would you ask them and recommend for them to do if they are looking to help support this cause?
At this point, what would really be um, the single thing that they could do? I mean, you can do all kinds of things, but at this point, call your 10 best friends, tell your 10 best friends to call their 10 best friends, and have a phone tree, if you will, of folk who are calling the White House. And even if you say, I want reparations, but I want reparations that does this or the other, you have to still remember that the only way you can get reparations at the federal level, no matter what you do, no matter what you think or say, the only way you can get reparations at the federal level is it must be legislated, it must pass through the congressional process, and it must go to the West Wing and be signed off on by whomever is sitting in the chair in the West Wing. So at this point, everything that we could possibly do on the House side has been done. We continue to try and motivate our senators on the Senate side to come on as co-sponsors. So while we continue to do that in the background, again, call your 10 best friends, tell your 10 best friends to call their 10 best friends, and keep it going. Call the White House, 202-456-1111. Real easy, 202-456-1111. Tell whoever takes the message that you are calling and you want the president to live up to his commitments for people of African descent, you're asking that the president issue an executive order for reparations. We're trying to get the president to give us an HR 40 executive order. So if you don't remember HR 40, don't worry about it. They know. We need President Biden to give us a signed executive order for HR 40. And what's important about it that you do it now? The reason you have to do it now is because in 2.5 years, the next person who comes into the White House, let's just say, and please don't say, oh my God, she put that in the atmosphere. It is what it is. Let's just say 2.5 years from now, the next person who comes into the White House is the party, not the Democrats, party on the other side of the aisle. And let's say the person who comes in says to his or her constituents and supporters, the very first thing I'm going to do when I get in is I'm going to issue an executive order to overthrow the executive order for there to be a commission to study and to craft remedies for for reparations. So we are counting our days, our minutes, our hours, because we have to get the executive order passed and signed, and we have to get the commission stood up. The commission is an 18-month commission. We have to get the commission stood up, and we have to get the commission to complete everything it needs to do before President Biden leaves office. And I'm
Right.
not saying he can't win his reelection. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we don't know that he's going to win his reelection. So this is a midterm election. 2 years down the road, when the next term comes for voting, there's no way to predict who's going to go into the White House 2.5 years down the road. We don't know that. And that's why we're saying right now, we need all hands on deck. You can either be on the menu or you can be at the table working to make the menu be what you need it to be. And the best way to do that right now, 202-456-1111. Blow up the White House hotline. Just blow it up. Jam them up.
Mm-hmm.
And we will know. We will know because they will let us know that the White House hotline is getting an inordinate number of calls about passing an executive order for reparations. So that's what I would recommend. And I just have to say this. 1963. So now I'm a dinosaur. In
No, you're not.
1963, in Birmingham, Alabama, our babies, not our college students, our babies decided that they were a part of the community and they wanted to be a part of the movement. Our babies did that. They met, they went out, they got together, they met, they got together, and they went out. And do you know what they became victims of? I'm gonna use the word victims. Water hoses.
Right.
Bull Connor. He did not care that they were our babies. He put the same water hoses on them as he put on adults.
Mm-hmm.
He used the same vicious attack dogs on them as he did on adults. And our babies stood strong. They didn't run home crying to their parents. They
Mm-hmm.
stood strong. And then when Bull Connor decided it was time to take them to jail, they quietly got in line and got in the wagons and went to jail. So if our babies in 1963, I know it's a long, long time ago, but if our babies had the wherewithal to be able to do that in 1963, all I'm asking is that you just ask your teenagers um, to do the same thing. Get involved. Call the White House. Give them the message. 202-456-1111. Leave the message. When you go back to school and your history teacher and your government teacher is asking you what you did over the summer, I got involved. I called the White House. It was the first time I ever did it. I was nervous. I was a little bit not sure I could pull it off. Somebody answered the phone. I gave them the message. I told them to tell the president, people of African descent are requesting that you, sir, give us an executive order for reparations.
Mhm.
You can do that. I
Yep,
mean,
because we've seen them do it for the Asians as soon as he got in office. So I
and,
mean,
and whether he did it for the Asians or not, it's not the issue. We need to get our babies more involved. We
right.
need our young people to be more involved. We need our young people to understand the political process, but we also need our young people to understand what constitutes a movement. We need our young people to understand that they're coming for us. Whether you believe it or not, they are coming for us. Clarence Thomas is already talking about whenever we overturn Roe v. Wade, I think we should be looking at some other things that we can overturn. How long do
They're
you think it's
they're
going
wanting to
to
go way back. They're wanting to go way back, like I said in 2016, I was telling people from what I was witnessing early on. I said they're going to, and I kind of said it halfway in disbelief, but I was like, it looks to me like they're trying to even go back to chattel slavery, like
be? Of course,
literally chains and shackles slavery. And people kept telling me
absolutely.
I was overreacting. I said, I'm not overreacting. I'm
Well,
paying attention.
you're paying attention, and no matter how you look at the MAGA people, when they say they want to make America great again,
Mhm,
what they're saying is what made America great was the good old days, way 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 back in the beginning of time,
mhm,
when they had free labor and more free labor, and they could uh, call upon their very vicious, very mean spirited behaviors and
mhm,
treat our ancestors any way they wanted to, because
mhm,
they convinced themselves that we were nothing more than animals anyway. We were that, hence, the whole thing about shadow property.
mhm,
So that gave them the ticket to treat us any way they wanted to treat us. And if we don't believe that that is exactly what they were uh, talking about in between the lines of make America great again, then we're going to wake up one day and we're going to find that they did us as President Jackson did the American Indians, hence the Trail of Tears.
mhm,
He didn't show up and say, you got 30 days. He showed up and he rounded all of them up, and it was in the dead of winter. And historically, they say 125,000 of them died. I believe it's a lie. I don't care
yes.
what you tell me. I said easily twice that. 250,000 of them died on that Trail of Tears. If you're not familiar with the Trail of Tears, Google Trail of Tears and Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson graces the $20 bill. So we could make noise about a lot of things, but I understand we have other things in our lives that are more important. However, if other things are more important in our lives, then we are never going to correct those things that must be corrected. And every time I think about Harriet Tubman being on the back of the $20 bill with Andrew Jackson,
Mm.
it it
And
is
not only
infuriating.
that, what really breaks my heart is seeing the people of color that are aligning themselves with the white supremacist system. That, even people that I know, people of color that I know, they're aligning themselves because with the system, trying to uphold that system, and it's the system has never really been for us anyway. So me seeing them trying to uphold that system and not make changes and reform because it's not working for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, Especially when they look like me, that's extra upsetting to me.
Um, I think we all have the right to be whoever we want to be,
Hmm.
but I also think that we should do a better job of vetting information before we decide to be whoever it is we think we want to be. For example, many, many years ago, when there were riots and looting and the whole 9 yards, there were so many proprietors who did not look like us. But do you know the signs they had in their windows? I'm one of you. Don't
Right, right.
don't break my windows. I'm like you. I'm one of you.
Hmm.
And maybe our fellow people of African descent are thinking that if I align myself with them, I'm safe.
Hmm.
Am I saying that they are safe? No, I'm not saying they are safe. I'm just saying maybe their thought process
Hmm.
is if I align myself with them, when they come for us, they're going to skip over me and they will go to the next person.
But
The
the thing is, they're
problem
going to skip for the second and come back.
exactly. When they're done with everyone else, they're gonna double
Hmm.
back. That's just like reversing a car. They're gonna hit reverse and they're coming back.
Right.
So we have to be more. Uh, we have to be more of a unified voice. We have to be more of a unified unit, and we have to stand shoulder to shoulder and sing in one voice. Even if you say, I don't really like that Kenniss Henry, I don't even like what she's talking about.
Hmm.
Well, you can come and tell me, but
Hmm.
outside, we have to say, yeah, Kenniss Henry, she know what she's talking about. I like what she says. And then we can rectify whatever it is you don't like behind closed doors. But
Right.
to go out and to say, hey, you know that Kenniss Henry? Don't pay any attention to her. She don't know what she's talking about. She's a fraud. She's a fake.
And if
We have to
anybody is listening and or watching, and you have any questions or comments for Miss Kennis Henry, please leave them in the comments, and I'll pass them along, or she will get them so we can address those questions or comments.
so again, it we have to do less of the skimming the surface. Well, I
Hmm.
want this. Well, no, I want this. Well, first of all, let's all come to the table, as I said before, and decide what's on the menu. The flavor, it's like soda or lemonade. Gosh, they have so many flavors of lemonade. I'm just blown away. Blackberry lemonade, mango lemonade, strawberry lemonade, watermelon lemonade.
And speaking of tables, how about what Ice Cube is doing with the NFL, trying to proclaim that he's helping close the black community wealth gap?
Well, now again, I've already said that the wealth gap, if you equate it in terms of years, is 228 years. Economists support that. I'm not making this up. I didn't just wake up and pull a number out of the sky somewhere. Your economists will say pretty much the same thing. They may be years to the right, 5 years to the left, but they're going to say it is beyond 200 years of a space between the wealth of
Disparity.
our colonizers and oppressors and that of our people of African descent. So I believe that Mr. Ice Cube has made an announcement that he has signed a fact check me if I'm wrong, signed an agreement with the NFL
Mm-hmm.
that there will be $125 million that will be allocated to Black businesses for them to be able to go out and to close the wealth gap. So
Hmm.
let's see how that works. The first thing I thought when I saw that was, wow, he has this amazing opportunity to have FaceTime with the NFL.
Hmm.
Why
And
is
here
it
we go.
why is it then that with all that FaceTime, we don't have Colin Kaepernick on the field again? As the first thing I thought of. Then the second thing I thought of is, why is Colin not playing football? Oh, he took a knee. Well, if the NFL, and I'm not talking about Roger Goodall, I'm talking about the NFL. If the NFL was so upset that Black players took a knee to call attention to the treatment of other Black slash people of African descent, and they were like they were in a lot of cases very angry, very near vicious about how they
Mm-hmm.
felt about it, then why all of a sudden is the NFL willing to make this uh, uh, very drop in the bucket
It's an
donation?
insult. It's an insult.
It is
That number is
insulting.
an insult.
It's not going to do what needs to be done to close that, to erase that intergenerational poverty that we are talking about, that we see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And how will it, how will it be determined as to what Black businesses get what, and then how will who will hold those Black businesses responsible, hold their feet to the fire to make sure that the monies they get from this drop in the bucket, 125 million dollars, that it's going to do something. I thought I saw somewhere where the intent is that this will grow into $500 million and then grow again from $500 million to something even larger. I think
Yes.
that's what I saw.
I
So
think
if that's the case, then um, I don't see, even if it's $500 million.
that's it. You did say it's
Okay.
right there. I'm glad the NFL stepped up, he said. They're the biggest and most powerful and most influential to other 500 Fortune 500 companies. So we want to get them to lead the charge. They've already allocated and spent up to 125 million. So we want to turn into 500 million, maybe a billion, and then move on to other leagues and hopefully other companies like Nike and the big boys, and tell them to try to adopt the same thing. Yeah.
So, I haven't seen the true T's and C's, terms and conditions of this $125 million. What I can tell you is that there have been other cases where announcements have been made that there's going to be up to $1 billion. But when you looked at the T's and C's, what actually was going to take place, it wasn't $1 billion unless organizations, i.e., Nike, i.e., the NFL, i.e., American Express, i.e., Exxon Corporation, unless those organizations stepped up and pledged financial support. So while the press release and the press conference and all the fanfare can be that this is happening and this is this enormous amount of money, then it's only there if supporters, step up and say, "Here's my check, and I'm making this financial donation." But
Mhm.
since I don't see anything yet on the again terms and conditions of how this money is going to come about, then all I can say is to Mr. Ice Cube, can you go back and renegotiate so that we really can say from the NFL, I mean, they're rolling in money.
Right.
They're rolling in money. And what makes them so popular and what makes them so wealthy is that they have all of these players of African descent. And the best you can do is $125 million when these players make you hand over fist dollar,
Billions. Billions. Right. And
billions
not
and
only
billions.
that, they don't have women in the negotiations. I noticed that there are no women at the table.
Well, again, this country is rapidly moving in a direction of sending a message that women are insignificant, that women have no place. Look at, again, Roe v. Wade. Women cannot even make decisions on their bodies. We need men to tell us what we should and should not do for our own bodies. And how about, let's just get crazy for a minute. And how is it that men have that right when I don't know a percentage? I'm not even going to talk in terms of percentages, but how is it that that is the case when there is a grave concern about women who have been raped? Who were they raped by? Men. So if I'm being raped by a man, this man has all the control over me. He has the control to be able to rape me. He has the control to tell me I do not have an opportunity to decide the fate of my body. And or if as a result of being raped, there becomes a impregnation. I have no control. I can't get it aborted. Now they're talking about some really bizarre stuff where if you have a miscarriage, you may be federally, well, not federally, criminally
Yes.
prosecuted for
Yes.
having a miscarriage.
They're trying to make the turn. They're making those felonies as well, and then and to piggyback off the rape, they are also giving the rapist visitations with the kids or giving them custody of those
Mm-hmm.
babies and suing
Mm-hmm.
the women, and then allowing the rapist families, if they find out that the woman wants to terminate, allowing the rapist families to sue the victim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
So again, here we are, women being erased from everything. It's as if they're saying, when you talk about make America great again, it's as if they're saying your only role is to be barefoot and anything beyond being barefoot, you don't need to be involved. You just
basically
go on
cattle.
over there, huh?
Basically cattle.
Yeah. Basically, you're just like the prize cattle. You probably aren't even as valuable as is the prize
That
bull.
that part, that part. I just And I also, I mean, like I was talking to a guest last night. We were talking about. I feel so helpless because how are we going to reverse course? Because they're basically in scorched earth mode right now, trying to burn down. These Republicans are trying to burn down every uh, law and amendment as fast as they can at scorched earth speed right now. They've been emboldened to do that. So how are we going to reverse course? And this is just a suggestion, which several people have made. We have to uh, cripple this economy. Like we absolutely have to not spend money except for things that we need, except for the essentials, except to keep our lights on. And people are hard headed and selfish and aren't willing to do that.
Well, the problem with that, because that's been something that was called for 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and you have to time it strategically.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
can't be in October,
Hmm.
November, December, or January,
Hmm.
because we have been uh, programmed to think that we have to run around like we're crazy, buying all of the stuff for holiday gift giving.
Hmm.
So the couple of times that the effort was attempted, we pushed back. No, we don't want to do this now. We need to go holiday gift
Hmm.
giving shopping. So that's one of the things. I'm not saying it's major, but I am saying that this has been tried before.
Hmm.
So if we're going to do it, we have to pinky swear that we're not going to, at old dark 100 hours, be on our laptops ordering a boatload of stuff with a
Hmm.
message in the comment section that says, park 5 blocks up the street, walk back with all of my boxes, and come in my yard and go around the side and hide them behind the bushes,
Hmm.
because you want to act as if you are supporting the call to not do any shopping or whatever, the call
Right.
to boycott, but you still want to shop. So
Right.
the way
Right.
you
That's what I'm
shop
saying. It's like
the way
this.
you shop is you put a comment in, you put a statement in the comment field. Do not come and park in front of my house. Park 5 blocks down the street, walk back up, and slide up in my yard and throw the boxes behind the trees or the
Right.
bushes or whatever. So again, there is no way for us to actually do this and be in unison about doing this. And another thing that we can do is we have to become smarter. And I please don't call and say I'm I'm offending anyone. I'm not. I know when President Barack Obama won his office, every black person became a political pundit. So
Hmm.
I'm not trying to offend anyone. What I'm saying is that we may also have to become uh, more involved in the process and do a better job of vetting. For
Hmm.
example, in 27 states of 50 states, there are people running on ballots, down ballot, who were involved in some way with the insurgents, with the attempted takeover of the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. They're on the ballots. In the great state of Pennsylvania, one of the people who stormed the Capitol is on the ballot. He is running in as a Republican for the privilege of being the governor of the great state of Pennsylvania. How did we let that happen? I
I'll
mean,
tell you
real.
how. Because this is when I became really disillusioned. I mean, I've been disillusioned in general, and I don't praise. I'm not part of a cult, just like you are. We aren't cultish like the other people are. But after the day after that attack, the way I watched the Democrats. I was like, okay, I'm expecting the Democrats to kick these people out of Congress. Like, don't allow these people past a metal detector to go back and walk the halls of Congress. I mean, how can you work shoulder to shoulder with somebody that literally just tried to kill you? Make that make sense to me? Make that make sense to me. How could the Dems try to still, some of them try to claim bipartisanship with these people that built a gallows to even try to hang their own vice president? And you're still working with these people. I mean, that just nothing about that makes sense to me.
I don't think it ever will make sense. In no disrespect to anyone, none. This whole thing about the Supreme Court judges
Hmm.
who are now crying because somebody has determined that at least three of them are just bold-faced liars, that they lied in their testimonies, they lied in their confirmation hearings, or someplace they've lied, and folk are calling them out now. It sounds like one of the judges, somebody went to his house and just parked out in front of his house.
Hmm.
So he is, this is just me using my imagination. He is hiding behind the curtain, behind the sofa, whimpering about how, he's scared. Sorry, it's
I'm
my
sorry
imagination.
about laughing. I'm sorry because I just got that visual.
It's just my
I'm
imagination.
sorry, I just got that visual like you.
So immediately our Congress whips into action, and they come up with legislation that if I'm not mistaken, fact check me, because it was so ridiculous, I decided not to even follow it, but I
Hmm.
think it was signed into law to give these 9 people greater protection, greater protective service protection. So here we are. We can do that, but
Hmm.
we can't come up with any kind of legislation to say exactly what you're talking about. And that is, no, 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 you cannot come back in here. You have demonstrated who you are and what you are all about. So we are going to uh, invoke whatever we need to invoke so that we say to you, you are not welcomed back in here. You have failed not just your constituents, you failed this country. You
Hmm.
failed this document that you all talk about all the time. This wonderful document, the Constitution. It's your Constitution. And you
Hmm.
disrespected and failed your own document, the Constitution. And I don't know what happened, but I've been calling for them to put Jenny Thomas under the prison. She need to be under the prison. There's no prison that she should be in behind bars. They should just
She
dig a hole.
funded the attack on our capital. She funded the attack on our capital.
But
Like
she also
she,
is the person who got all the permits and slid on over there to make sure everything was in order and ready to go.
right.
Jenny Thomas. And how can your husband still be sitting on the bench without ever recusing himself and acting as if he is oblivious to what his wife is doing? He know what she doing. So
Now, under the circumstances, we could recuse himself, but don't the Dems have any power to impeach a justice?
that I
When
don't know. That I don't know.
that is baffling me too. So you see this man blatantly laughing at everybody's face, in everybody's face. His wife is an insurrectionist with by the Constitution that y'all claim to to praise says what happens. What is the rule of law for traitors of the country? What is let me look that up. What is the consequence for traitors? I'm gonna pull that up here because that a lot of people forget. Um,
Well, the consequences for traitors, but what constitutes a traitor is the first thing, because that may be a slippery slope also.
treason.
So,
That's what I'm looking at. Treason.
okay,
So that's
because
what that is, basically treason, and he's sitting on the bench. So he is associated with treason.
well, he's definitely associated with a treasonist. That's for sure,
So
because
penalty
they live in the
is
same
life
house.
in prison. Huh?
They live in the same house, probably sleep in the same bedroom, all that stuff.
Right. So he
Um,
it's not like he doesn't know.
exactly,
It's
because
not like he
he
doesn't know.
knows.
So here we go. I'm gonna post this here. So this right here, penalty, life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years or any term of years. Treason is a Class A felony under sentencing guidelines, and current guidelines provide for maximum sentence of life in prison or $50,000.
$50,000 is nothing.
Right. Well, these days it's not to them because they get dark money from these donors and Russia. So $50,000 is like 50 cents. So the fact that he's on, I mean, I don't understand why the Dems, well, and I know everybody's busy with like the dismantling of the Constitution, but oh, here we go here. So federal, hold on a second. Federal definition. Okay. So definition of Article 3, Section 3 of the United States Constitution. Treason is specifically limited to levying war against the U.S., which is what Jenny Thomas did. And because I can't show the whole thing, I'm going to pull it up over here. Levying war against the United States or adhering to their enemies, which she did and they do by comforting Russia. Penalty under U.S. Code Title 18. The penalty is death or
Ooh,
not less than 5 years. Yes, it's
ooh,
penalty under U.S. Code Title 18. The penalty is death.
wow.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's what it says. That's in their Constitution. Or not less than 5 years with imprisonment, with a minimum fine of $10,000 here, if not sentenced to death. If not sentenced to death. Any person convicted of treason against the United States also forfeits the right to hold public office in the United States. The terms used in the definition derive from English legal tradition according to their English legal tradition. Specifically, the Treason Act, 1351. Levying war means the assembly of armed people to overthrow of the government or to resist its laws. Enemies are subjects of a foreign government that is in open hostility with the United States. Those who assemble to levy war as well aspire with them can be prosecuted. The American definition of narrower, what does it say here? Narrower than that of English law, which span other classes of treason, such as counterfeiting and bringing indignity upon the king. We don't have a king, but they tried to make Doofus a chief of the king. So, by their rules, treason penalty for treason is death and prison and not holding office. But yet he still sits on the bench. So, by everything under this article of the United States Constitution, the Dems, don't they hold some kind of power to enact?
One would think.
And the fact that they're it's just so aggravating to watch the lack of urgency, when they see them in scorched earth mode dismantling this country.
Well, that's the way it is. And we, um, no, never mind. I think,
I can
I
feel what
think,
you're about to say.
yeah, I think I have to run. I have
Okay.
somebody in Cobra blowing up my phone. Actually, I have three people
Okay, well,
blowing up
thank
my
you so
phone.
much. I appreciate this hour I got to spend with you, Miss Kenniss Henry, and our call to action. Give us a call to action while I pull up this. I'm going to pull up this my sponsorship. So give us a call to action when for closing out.
The call to action is always going to remain the same. We must all sing the same song. We must have reparations for the 400 plus years of pernicious history that this country, no one else, this country has perpetrated against people of African descent and continue to do so, so that the vestiges remain. And you must remember, they stole us. Don't let people say, well, the Africans sold you to us. Nah, 70% of everyone who came here was a captive African.
Mhm.
So they stole us and they sold us, and now we are owed. And no one wants to talk about it. Over
Well, we'll keep
two
talking about it. We're going to keep talking about it.
2 million, final thought, 2 million of our ancestors have come together and joined hands and lie at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. They never even made it to this land to be mistreated and to be turned into enslaved, forced free labor, with all of the atrocities that came with that. And they never even made it so that they could become someone who left an opportunity for descendants. And their family members back on the continent had no idea what happened to them, and they're lying at the bottom of the ocean. So for me, that's just lost generations. No matter how you look at it, those 2 million people who have come together and lie at the bottom of the ocean, they're lost. They are lost generations because they never had an opportunity to even have that um, case, or that opportunity to produce downline. So we have an obligation to do a better job of knowing our history and to be able to stand up and to speak about our history. And in speaking about our history, we come to realize that reparations they're long overdue. They stole us, they sold us, and we are owed. Call the White House, ask them to support an HR 40 executive order, not just a bill, but an executive order for reparations, an HR 40 executive order for reparations.
Thank you so
202
much.
456 1111. I am sorry, but I
Thank
have
you
to
so much.
run.
And today was a very important day for us to have this conversation as well. So I will talk to you later. And I thank you so much for joining the show.
My pleasure. So now, are you gonna drop me out, or I have to do this on my
No,
own?
I'm gonna close the whole show, and then I will talk to you later. Just call me and message me when you get time when you're done.
Sure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.